love October and I love October readathons, so why don't we do another one? I am going to be both hosting reading sprints and participating in TBR Harvest hosted by Leandra. She's created 3 amazing prompt boards. I was going to go with the Escape the Corn Maze, but when I was looking at the prompts for all of these, I just decided that the Escape the Haunted House was where my heart lied. Everyone is going to be starting in the attic together, and then you can choose your different pathway in order to get out the door and escape the house. And in order to do this, we have to find a prompt from another readathon happening in the month of October and read a book for that prompt. This was absolutely perfect because you guys have already seen my Roll As You Go Spookoplathon vlog, but I just didn't get enough rolls. I only got to do 4 and I really wanted to do more, and now is my chance. So let's do a Spookopoly roll to see what I'm going to be reading to escape the attic.
Okay, so we're actually going to ignore the fact that I technically went the wrong direction when I originally played Spookoplathon. My brain went, you read left to right, so that's the way you're supposed to roll, right? No, wrong. So we're going to start with chance, which is where I left off, and we're going to go this way around, the correct way around this time. So let's see what prompt we get. 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Ooh, a black cover.
Okay, so I've done some looking at my TBR to see what I currently have that's got a mostly black cover that I really do need to pick up. And I'm gonna go with So Thirsty. I had several books that I could have picked for this, but I'm gonna keep them on the docket. I'm gonna keep them in the back of my head. I love Rachel Harrison's writing. Somehow she manages for things to be super, super quirky, fun, but also very spooky and disturbing all at the same time. And I cannot wait to pick this one up. It's about a woman that is not very excited about her birthday. She feels like she's getting older and just doesn't want to celebrate, so her husband whisks her away on a trip with one of her really good friends, and it somehow involves vampires. I would like for my getting older birthdays to somehow involve vampires. I say that now, but I may take that back after I read this book. I'm gonna be starting with this one. Hopefully we will make it out of the attic. So while I was at work today, I've actually managed to already get through half of So Thirsty. This book reads so fast. It's following Sloane, and Sloane has woken up one morning on her birthday. She's noticing every single wrinkle. She definitely feels like she's getting older. She's a little bit jealous of her best friend who is off in England following around her rock star boyfriend. When her husband tells her that he has planned a special getaway for her and her friend in the mountains where they can just go and relax and have a good time. When they get there, Sloane quickly realizes that Naomi has a few other plans in store for them. She definitely wants Sloane to lighten up and become the life of the party. So they end up going to a remote location with a guy that they've never met into a party that seems to be an orgy. There's definitely more to this party than it seems. They've somehow gotten themselves mixed up with vampires. This book definitely took a turn that I was not expecting at about 35%. Not in a bad way, but just different than what I was expecting it to be. The very beginning definitely was a little too heavy-handed in the Sloane's getting older and she's jealous of her best friend and her best friend's a wild child and all of that. I just felt like, yes, we got it, and yes, I wanted to be able to relate to Sloane, but I also needed a little bit more than that because it was getting very repetitive. At the same time, it's so easy to read, and Rachel Harrison does a really good job at creating characters that you can relate to, but at the same time, it was just a little bit too much. Sloane was a little bit too... She didn't have enough agency. She didn't seem to want to be her own person. I think that's going to start changing as we continue on, and maybe the vampires will actually bring a little bit of life into her. So I did manage to finish So Thirsty, and I'm still thinking on this one. There were a lot of things that I really liked about this, a lot of things that I feel like Rachel Harrison does extremely well. Characters that you love to hate, you can relate to them, so you're like, I don't want to hate them, but they're also infuriating all at the same time. She does that very well, and Naomi and Sloane definitely fit that mold. They are frustrating. The things that they do, you just kind of want to shake them and be like, oh, why would you do that? Their friendship is toxic AF. This book is very easy to fly through. It's so easy to read. I finished it in a day. Could have easily finished it in one sitting, honestly, if I'd had the time. However, this is more of a character study type book in my opinion. There's not like enough of a plot for me. It felt like there was nothing we were striving toward for the entirety of the book. We were following Sloane and Naomi as they made decision after decision and the after effects and the aftermath of those decisions and how it was affecting them as characters, but there wasn't anything that we were striving to accomplish in this. So just kind of be aware of that going in. This is feels very slow because of that. And there are definitely moments where I was getting kind of bogged down in the more repetitive, okay, we're in Sloane's head. We hear what she's thinking. I know that she's not happy with her life. I know she's frustrated with Naomi, but let's move past that kind of thing. There were definitely moments where I got a little bored, I guess, but overall, I still enjoyed this. It still has the unhinged nature that you would expect from Rachel Harrison. Some of the things that she does, it's just like, oh my gosh, we ate someone's face off. I think that this is going to appeal more to fans of Cackle than the fans of Black Sheep. So if you've read both of those and you loved both, I think that you will really enjoy this. If you did not like Cackle and you really enjoyed Black Sheep, this one may be a little bit more of a struggle for you because it feels so much more character driven. Whereas Black Sheep was still very, very character driven, but there was an oh crap moment, a reveal, a plot thread that this one I feel like still had, but not in the same way. I don't know if I'm making any sense or not. Hopefully I am. So now we have managed to escape the attic and we need to figure out what room we're going to go into to try to continue out of this house. I'm going to look at the prompt sheet and I will let you know what room we are going into first thing in the morning.
Okay, so we have escaped the attic and now we have to continue moving through the haunted house. In order to do this, I think I'm going to go down the chimney. And because the chimney is so dark, you have to read a book with a dark cover in order to get to the bottom. For this one, I'm going to be going with The House at Watch Hill by Karen Marie Moning. If you guys know anything about me, then you may be aware that I absolutely adore the Fever series by Karen Marie Moning. The first 5 only. We don't talk about the later ones. They are so beaten up. Like, literally, it's a miracle that they are still bound together because they're so creased. I used to reread them every year. It was the series that got me back into reading as like an early adult, and I just love them so much. But when I heard she was coming out with a new book, I was cautiously excited because I just want to fall back into a series from her, but I don't want to get my hopes up too much. So I did start this and I'm about 10% of the way in so far and I am not loving it as much as I wanted to. It just feels a little bit too slow. We're following our main character and she's been taking care of her mother who has cancer. She can't keep down a job. They're barely making ends meet when one day her house goes up in flames and unfortunately her mother was trapped inside. So now she is alone, broke, and doesn't know what she's doing with her life. She meets a man and has a one-night stand with him, can't stop thinking about him, and then gets a mysterious call that she is the last heir to some kind of fortune and she is going to inherit a mansion if she can manage to live in it for 3 years. There's a lot of weird stipulations that come with that. She's not really sure about it, but she's like, I can't pass up the money, so I'm gonna do it. I think that the setup's just been a little bit too slow and repetitive for me. I love the writing, but I'm just like, okay, I'm bored. Let's move on. Let's get to like the meat of the story. What's the plot? What are we doing here? Because I think it's got witches, but I'm not really getting the witchy vibe where we are with her at the moment. And I really like, I don't know if this is a romantasy or a fantasy romance, but the relationship introduction to who I'm assuming is going to be the male lead, I didn't like. It was very, I don't know, it just was a little cringy. She like talks about how she's this prowess and she can give guys all these eyes and get whoever she wants, but then he gives her the eyes and her panties fall off and she sleeps with him and she's never really thought about anybody after the fact, but suddenly he's taking over her thoughts. And I'm just like, I don't buy it. And it was a little over explained. I just honestly felt like it was trying too hard. So I am not sure how I felt about that. I'm hoping as we get more interactions between them, because that's really the only interaction we've had between the two of them, things do get better, but I didn't love that. I was not a huge fan of that meet cute, meet something. It wasn't really a meet cute, but you know what I mean. That introduction to the two of them. So I think I can finish this today. It's a quick, easy read. The narration is great. I would highly recommend the audiobook. And I went from like super, super excited to cautiously optimistic, but I'm still like cautiously optimistic that Karen Marie Moning can pull it through.
So I just got home from work and I had a very exciting package. This was perfect timing because my Arcane Fever series special editions literally just showed up at my door today. So could not have been more perfect timing. These are like the only special editions I think that exist for this series. It's actually really hard to get matching editions because it originally came out mass market and then it switched over to hardcover and then they changed the cover. So very, very difficult to actually get good editions for these. So let me unbox them with you.
I was literally so excited to get these. Wilder definitely wanted to help me unbox them. The spines are absolutely gorgeous. I love that they're numbered. All overall though, yeah, I have them in the right spot. The edges are definitely different than what I expected them to be, but I do like them. All of the covers have her on the front with her very signature blonde hair. I love the foiling added to these. I think it is just gorgeous and so very shiny. The naked hardcovers though are stunning. And I really like the reverse dust jacket art as well. I think that the character design on these is so pretty and they did such a good job with them.
I did decide to flip the dust jackets of these because I think the reverse character art is really pretty. I think my biggest complaint about these overall is just that the art, while gorgeous, feels a little too similar with each of the books. I definitely was hoping it would be a little bit different. Like the front cover of all of them is just her with her hair up in reverse, and then the reverse dust jacket is her or her and Baron's. And so I wish that they were a little bit different, but at the same time, they're very cohesive. They are beautiful. I am very happy with the quality of these editions. After that exciting news, let's quickly chat about House on Watch Hill. I'm halfway into this, and at the beginning, I will admit I was very unsure, and I'm still a little bit on the fence. It feels slower than I remember the Fever series being, and maybe that's just because it's like Southern Gothic, and Southern Gothic tends to be more vibes, less like plot. And maybe I'm not a Gothic girly. I don't really know how to put my finger on it, but I found myself zoning out quite a bit, and I don't want to zone out. I want to be enjoying this and in it and completely like captivated by it, and I feel like I'm actually missing things because it's so easy for me to just quit listening. Tonight I am going to try to finish this, but I'm going to at the very least read along with it instead of trying to do it audibly. See if that helps. Excuse you. See if that helps me like keep my attention span glued to the page a little bit better instead of letting my mind wander. I'm still not really sure how the dynamic with Kellen versus this Alistair point of view that we're getting, how all of that ties together. And there's just a few continuity issues for me. Like she's just accepting the fact that she can do these things and all of this stuff is happening to her completely willy-nilly. She's just like, oh, well, this doesn't make sense. That's fine. I'm just like, girl, if I thought I could do magic, you bet your butt I would be trying to figure out what the heck was going on. If somebody was trying to kill me, I would be trying to figure out what is going on. And instead, she's just kind of letting life happen to her. And I don't love that. And it may be just in my zoning out moment, she knew she was a witch and she knew all of these things, but I just don't remember that ever truly being discussed. And she keeps talking about how these things shouldn't be possible and how things are happening beyond what she ever thought would be possible. And she's just like, that's okay. So I'm having some continuity issues, but I still like Cara Marie Moning's writing style. This girl is very horny, and I'm wondering if that's gonna like make a point, because right now it just feels very thrown in there. It doesn't feel like it affects the story or the plot at all. Don't get me wrong. If that's how things are, like I just came off of a Why Choose Romance that I freaking loved. So I'm not judging. I just feel like I want it to be ingrained in the story a little bit more and not just feeling like every time she meets a man, she goes, hey-o, and wants to jump his bones. And then 5 minutes later, we're moving on to something else. I'm having a lot of complaints about this, and I think I'm being overly nitpicky because this is one of my favorite series of all time. It is nostalgia. It is what got me into reading again. It's just my comfort read, and so it's hard for me to have anything live up to that, even though I don't think these are the best books ever written. I don't think if I read them today for the first time, it would be a love, it would be an obsession. Anyway, I think I'm putting too much stress on this book, so I'm gonna try to like back away from that, put that aside, physically read this tonight and see how I feel about it. I do hear that it has a very like heavy cliffhanger, and I'm a little bit scared for that because I've heard that the plot thread doesn't wrap up at all. It just ends. And there's no telling how long we're gonna have to wait for the next book, so that's kind of scary. And just like that, we have moved down the chimney and I have finished The House at Watch Hill. I think reading this one with the audiobook and trying to separate it from the Fever series definitely did help. I liked the second half a lot better than I did the first half. The second half definitely gave us more answers. We got some world building and a lot more understanding as to what was going on. And some of my questions and things that I was like, wait, that doesn't make sense. Why is she what? For the most part, we did get answers. There are still some things about the world building that are very murky to me, and I'm like, wait, why? And so I am struggling a little bit with that, and our main character was just not my favorite. She didn't really seem to have enough agency, although it did get better as the book went on. She just didn't question enough. She took everything at face value and things that did not make sense was like, oh well. So I just needed her to want to know things a little bit more, I think, and she would get angry about things, but I don't know, it just took too long to get there, I guess. This is not a romantasy, at least this first book is not. We definitely get threads of a romance, and I think that there is going to be 2 romantic interests, but it's not a romantasy. This is definitely more on the like urban fantasy side of things, and I think that the romance is going to play in more as we continue on, but this is definitely not the forefront of this one. I think I will continue on in the series. It definitely ends on a cliffhanger. It didn't feel quite as bad as what I had been led to believe, or I just wasn't as invested, one of the two. But I did like this well enough that I think I will continue. It's going to get a 3-star, and with that we have now gone down the chimney. So now we are in the fireplace and someone has lit a fire. Are we going to climb back up the way we came and escape the fire, or continue down and face the flames? In order to get the opportunity to decide this, we have to read something in a series. I am going to be continuing in the Beast of Briar series and reading Woven by Gold. I'm so excited to be back in this world, back with these characters so soon. I just need to know. I need to know what's going to happen. I need to know how things are going to continue. This one is longer than the first one, which I am excited about because I just wanted more last time. If I'm being completely honest, we did escape this way so that I could get this book on the TBR. I have managed to get halfway into Woven by Gold, and I'm still having such a fantastic time with this book. I do feel like it is a touch too long at the moment. I definitely think that there's some filler stuff in here. There's some things that could be shortened down, but overall, it's just fun. It's a great time. It's definitely smuttier than the first book was. We've had quite a few sex scenes at this point, but they do all feel very organic to the story. It doesn't feel like sex for the sake of being sex. It definitely feels like these are moments between these characters, how they're building their relationships, how they're learning about one another and learning like how they all fit in together. There has been a miscommunication trope, which I don't love. It was an extremely frustrating scene. I see how it happened, but I also just kind of wanted to shake them both and be like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Alas, I cannot do that. So I'm just gonna have to see how things play out. Overall, I think my ranking has stayed pretty much the same between book 1 and book 2. I love Caspian. He is hilarious and sarcastic and just the type of male character that I like in every book. He is my kind of man. I'm excited to see how this second half goes. We have gotten a little bit more of the plot. There's definitely been some politics introduced in this one, which I like quite a lot. And I think that that just continues to grow and develop as we continue on. And I'm curious to see how that's all going to shake out. This one is Farron's book. They did say after book 1, they knew that they wanted each book to be kind of that character's book. But I still think they're doing a really good job like interspersing all of the guys and not just focusing on the one character. Although there's definitely more about him and kind of his past and watching him grow and develop. And he's not my favorite character. I definitely feel like he's a bit too soft for my personal taste, but I am enjoying learning all of the interpersonal relationships that come with that and kind of the things outside of the castle in his realm and how he got to be where he is. So I'm still having a really good time with it, but it makes me very excited for some of my favorite characters' books because I'm like, ooh, I get to know more about you. I'm ready. So I should be able to finish this tonight. These books read so incredibly quickly. I just literally fly through them. I did do the audiobook for the first half of this, and I do think the audiobooks are good. My only complaint is that it's the same male narrator for all of the men, which is not terribly uncommon. At least there is a male narrator. And thankfully they all read pretty differently, so it doesn't take long if you forget whose chapter you're in to be like, oh yeah, I'm in this person's head, because they all do have a very different, distinct personality. But it would be nice if there were different narrators just to kind of keep everything separate. That's my only nitpicky complaint. So far, having a great time. This book is not letting me down, and I'm so excited to continue reading. I finished Woven by Gold, Woven in Gold. I can't ever remember the titles of these books, and I still really enjoyed this. It was so much fun being back in this world, being back with these characters. The ending really ramped up the plot quite a bit, which I appreciated. We got some answers to things, and it was just a lot of fun. I do stand by it was a touch too long. It did feel like there was a little bit of filler, but overall, it was a good time. The ending did not shock me. It definitely gave this like big reveal, but I saw it coming. I feel like most people probably saw it coming, but I still liked it, and I'm curious to see how it plays out into the rest of the story, how it impacts the rest of the story. This one is significantly spicier than the first book, and I didn't mind that. Again, I felt like all of the relationships felt very organic. We did get another mate in this one, which I really liked. We got to know more about the guys and kind of their backstory and how they ticked. I would not recommend listening to these books at the gym though. I did try to do that, and it made for a little bit of an awkward walk. Well, I think that I liked this one slightly less than I did book one. I'm still so excited to continue on in this series. You bet I will be trying to get it on any and all TBRs here in the future, because this world is just perfect for the season, and it is everything that I'm in the mood for right now. But let me go grab my computer, because we do need to decide if we are going to go back up the chimney and try to escape the flames or power on through. Okay, I'm back with my computer. So now we are in the middle of trying to deal with this fire. After somebody put it out, the smoke is still lingering, so we have to hold our breath and climb back up the chimney. In order to get up the chimney, we have to read a hyped book. To get out of the chimney, I'm going to be going with Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. I have heard this book mentioned everywhere. It follows me on TikTok, it follows me to Instagram, it is my Patreon buddy read for the month of October. It is literally everywhere. Everyone's talking about this book, so I think it will absolutely fit for this prompt. I've heard it's perfect for the season. It has trials and necromancers, which just seems like the perfect fall read for me. I've heard it compared to One Dark Window, which I really enjoyed, and so I'm hoping this will be the perfect book for me. I have actually already started this, and I'm around 10-15% of the way in so far, and I'm having a good time. I do feel like the world building is a little bit murky. I don't necessarily feel like I completely understand what time period we're in, or if this is really our world, or if it's not our world. Does everybody know about magic and all these creatures, or just the creatures know about it? However, I feel like that's not really gonna matter once we kind of get into the main plot of the story, so I'm trying to just ignore it. I just wish that it was a little bit better set up. I'm hoping that the world building for the rest of the story, the world building for Phantasma itself, is good, because if it is, I think I can ignore the rest of that stuff. This is following Ophelia, and Ophelia and her sister have just recently lost their mother. Their mother was a very powerful necromancer, and in order to keep the family's legacy alive, once her mother dies, Ophelia has to do some really quick magic and take all of this responsibility on herself. They then realize that the manor that they've always lived in, that they thought they were going to inherit, is actually on the midst of bankruptcy, and they're going to have to try to figure out how to either save this house or move out, let it be demolished, and get a fresh start. Ophelia feels very trapped in her mother's expectations and the expectations of everything going on in her life, but her sister just wants to be wild and free and doesn't understand why Ophelia doesn't feel the same way. There's a lot of pressure put on the two of them, and her sister decides that she's going to finally be the responsible one, and she is going to try to figure out how to get them out of this mess, and she goes into what Ophelia thinks is Phantasma. Phantasma is essentially this dark, gothic house that involves the 9 levels of hell. If you can manage to get through them all, you get a prize beyond your wildest dreams, but it's going to take your greatest nightmares to get through it. There's also a voice in the head ish trope and OCD rep in here, and I'm very curious to see how that's going to play out. I love it when we can take something like that, put a fantasy twist on it, and make it so relatable, but also very much so a part of the world, and so far I think she's going to do that. I am getting One Dark Window vibes from that aspect right now, but I'm also, strangely enough, getting the Games Gods play, because even though this is not at all Greek gods, it's vampires, necromancers, ghosts, it has that like trials thing to where whoever's at the end gets a prize, and I think that we're going to go through each of those trials, and they're deadly, and I love me a good trial. I love a good trial, so I am so excited to continue on in this. The atmosphere so far has been really good. It definitely gives me the creep factor, and I'm very intrigued after the first trial, so hopefully that continues. I am now halfway into Phantasma, and I'm really having a good time with this. It's fast-paced, it's fun. I'm really enjoying the banter between her and Blackwell. Sometimes I feel like some of the motivations and some of the things that are happening is a little bit murky, but at the same time, This is kind of one of those books that the setting is intended to be very mysterious and very like not whimsical, but definitely atmospheric. And I don't feel like you're supposed to fully understand everything. It feels like a fun house in the way that you're like turning corners every second and you're feeling really disoriented. I think that's intentional, so it's not really bothering me at the moment, but I will say that some of the stuff is a little bit murky. While I am enjoying their banter, I wish we felt just a little bit more chemistry between the two of them. We did just have a sex scene and it felt so random, and I did not like that. It felt like it was just thrown in there because, oh, it's time, we haven't had a sex scene yet and we're halfway into the book, so why don't we just toss one in. It didn't really have any lead up. I felt like even though there was some banter and we like had some cheeky I would like to see you with your clothes off kind of moments, nothing ever really progressed past that. So when it just dropped in with no preamble, I was like, wait, I don't like that. But other than that, I am still having fun with this. The trials are really interesting. I think that it's cool that they're like following the 9 layers of hell, like from Dante's Inferno. That's a really unique take that I don't see on the trials aspect very often. So I am liking that, but there's a little bit of something missing. I don't know really what it is at the moment. Right now, it's feeling like a 4-star read. I have a lot of updates for you guys, but the first one is that I have finished Phantasma, and I have very mixed feelings on this book. I really liked the trials. I thought that the games and these 9 layers of hell was all really, really well done. It was interesting, it was different, it was engaging and fast-paced. The romance in this is where I struggled, and that's sad because this is a romantasy, so that was kind of hard for me. Originally, I was going to give this book a 4-star, but I think the more that I think about it, and the more that I talk about this book and talk about my feelings about this book, I think it's more like a 3.5 for me. The romance just fell very flat. We had some really good banter in the beginning. I was like, okay, I can vibe with this. But then as we continued on, the tension seemed to be missing. They went from kind of bantering and thinking each other were cute, just kind of like those thought processes, to bam. And the first sex scene in this felt so random, and it just never really got better on the tension front from there. It's like the author went, okay, it's time for a sex scene. Oh, they're together now. Let's add in some more. And I just never really felt it. I was never in it with the two of them. So even though I liked a lot of the world and a lot of the like concepts of the 9 layers of hell and kind of the phantasma itself, I didn't love the romance side of things. And because of that, half of this book felt pretty flat. This is a standalone, which I wasn't aware of. It's a standalone with a companion novel coming out next year. I do think I will continue and read the companion novel, but I didn't just love the way this ended. It was fine. It concluded, but it just felt very, we were leading up to this thing and then it ended kind of thing. And I just didn't love that. I liked the lore that we found out at the end. I wanted to know more about that. I felt like that should have continued on and been a plot thread as we kept going instead of the way that it did end up ending. So I think for me, this one just fell a little flatter than I wanted it to, but the potential was there, and that's what's so frustrating is I do see the potential in this. I just think that the romance needed a lot more tension, a lot more buildup, and it really needed to be a duology in my opinion. I wanted to find out more of the in-between, more of the ending kind of being spread out over instead of just, I don't know what I'm saying. It didn't work as well as I wanted it to. So good, not great. Would I recommend? Yes, if you like the trials kind of aspect of things and that's something that you really enjoy in books and you want to go into it for the romance, but the romance, if it's a little bit more rushed, doesn't bother you, then I would recommend giving this at least a try. A lot of people absolutely adore this book, so it's very well loved. I just think there were some things that could have been done better. From the chimney, we then found ourselves back in the attic, so I had to lean on my community again and read a book from another readathon happening in the month of October. I love Halloween. It is hosted by my friend Lexi from Books with Lexi, and it's so much fun. It's just a readathon that happens on the weekends, and there are prompts and activities that you can do. This year, she did move it over to a Patreon exclusive readathon, which is really fun. I will link her Patreon down in the description box in case you guys want to check it out, but it's been so much fun to participate on Patreon. There were 4 different prompts. I'm only going to share one of them with you, so you'll have to go check out her Patreon if you want to know the rest, and it is to spell a spooky word with the letters on the title of a book. I cheated a little bit because I think the intention was to like spell a word with like different random configurations, but this book has the word nightmares on it. Night, nightmares, both of those are spooky, so we're gonna go with it. This book is Stunning, stunning, stunning. Like, disgusting, but stunning. However, book insides, not so great. This is the same author that wrote Den of Vipers, which I have not read, but have heard things about. And I was hopeful because this was vampires that I was going to enjoy it. I've been in more of a reverse harem kick recently, which is not typically my vibe, but I'm really enjoying it right now. So I was like, okay, Cassie and Claire were buddy reading this. I was like, I'm gonna jump in. If I don't have somebody encouraging me to pick it up, I probably never will. And this may just remain a trophy book for me. It may just remain sitting on my shelves because I think I'm gonna put it down. The beginning actually was really, really working for me. It's following a woman who is a vampire. We start at 16 when she's turning into a vampire. Then we move to 18 when she's supposed to be finding her mate. Something happens, her mate rejects her, and she goes into a killing frenzy. That is not allowed in the vampire world. You cannot do that because people will find out and people are not supposed to know about vampires. So she ends up with this court of vampires that are the judges, and they kill her. She manages to somehow come back to life and joins their court. All of that lore was actually really interesting. I was engaged for the first 10%. Yes, it was dramatic. Yes, it felt a little overwritten and a little silly at times, but the meat of it was actually very interesting. And then we got more to the reverse harem side of things, and it's just sex for the sake of sex. It's sex to see how many wacky, weird things that we can manage to do with 8 people. And it wasn't working for me. It's too much. It was not good. So I am going to be DNFing this one. Will it remain on my shelves just as a trophy book? Quite possibly, because it's so pretty. But I don't think that I can subject myself to continuing that right now. But I think that's good enough for me to escape the attic again, and we're gonna move on to the next room. However, my camera battery is flashing at me, so I'm gonna go charge that, and then I'll give you an update on what I'm gonna be reading next. Camera battery has been restored, and we need to talk about, now that we have escaped the attic again, what room we're gonna try to hit next. Since we've already gone down the chimney, I think we're going to head into the bedroom. And when we get into the bedroom, we pause because there's a black cat. We don't have a black cat. Why is there a black cat? So we're very superstitious of this cat, and in order to get out of the bedroom, we have to read a book relating to superstition. Trial-based books have been working really well for me lately. We'll exclude the fact that the Romance and Phantasma was not my favorite, but I did like the trials aspect to it, so I think I'm gonna go with another games-related book, but this time it's gonna have witches. Witches feel very superstitious to me, and that is Hollowed Games by C.N. Crawford. I have read a C.N. Crawford before and didn't like it. But I do want to try her books again because I hear so many good things about her books, and I am one of those people that can love a book from one author and dislike a book from the same author, or dislike a book and then love another one. So I do want to give her books another try. This is the Bookish Box edition. It is very, very pretty. The white balance in here is not spectacular, but it has like a snake on the end papers. And it says that she's cursed and can kill with the brush of her fingertips. And she has gathered the attention of the Raven Lord, who is the lethally beautiful leader of the witch hunters. He arrests her, and her only hope to survive is a series of brutal trials. 99 out of 100 will die, and magic is strictly forbidden. The back says a Raven Lord who thinks of nothing but forbidden touch, and a witch who can kill if she does. Sounds very enemies to lovers. It's got trials. It's a recipe for success. I'm now halfway into Hallowed Games, and I'm having a good time with this. We have just gotten to the first trial. I'm actually in the middle of the first, trial, and I'm actually in the middle of the first trial right now, and it is brutal. We have people getting cleaved in half. There's fire running everywhere. It's like a labyrinth, and they have to figure out how to get out of it. It's so cool, and I'm really enjoying that. I don't know that I'm 100% vibing with the relationship side of things, and it definitely feels like that's going to be put a little bit on the back burner. They have moments where I'm like, I liked that, and then moments where it feels a little bit too rushed. There's not as much banter, but I feel like the tension is pretty good. I'm enjoying it. I'm having fun. This is a fast read. I told you guys yesterday, I do not like the audiobook of this though. The voices are just not my favorite, and I find that it's easy for me to zone out of it. There's definitely been a few things where I've thought to myself, wait, was that explained? Why is it this way? Why are we doing this competition type thing? But then I think to myself, okay, wait, I was listening at that point, and I feel like I might not have picked up on some of the one sentence type things because it was easy for me to zone out of the audiobook. So now that I flipped back to the physical, I am enjoying it a lot better. I feel like I'm taking it in a lot more. So I'm going to be continuing on with the physical / ebook copy of it for sure, but I'm really enjoying this. I'm glad that I got the special edition of it because the snake is stunning. Because I think this is going to be a win for me, which I'm so glad about because I didn't like Frost by C.N. Crawford. I actually DNF'd it, so I was a little bit worried. But there are so many books of hers that sound so intriguing. She co-wrote Avalon Tower, which I'm really interested in. So I'm glad to know that I do like her writing. It was just that particular book and plot that I wasn't enjoying. I wanted to let you guys know that I have now finished Hollow Games, and I liked but didn't love this one. I think that what worked for me really well was the trials aspect to things. For the most part, I liked the world and the lore and how magic worked and the witches, and definitely at the end it kind of gave me revolution, rebellion plot, and I love that in books. It's one of my favorite tropes. So all of that ended up working very well for me. It also had some found family vibes, which I liked as well. Where I really struggled is actually going to be more on the relationship side of things. I was already having a few issues with it about halfway, but as we continued into the book, I just felt like they didn't really have a lot of substance to them. It felt like all that they really had for one another was lust, yet he was willing to do anything and everything to save her, and I just didn't feel it. I didn't feel like they had enough backstory and substance to them to make me believe that he would want to do anything and everything for her. It felt very just lust driven. A lot of our sex scenes were not actually sex scenes, and I'm not going to tell you any more than that because that would be a spoiler, but it felt too rushed, it felt too much, and I think that was kind of the way that it was being done more than anything, and he just felt very flat to me overall. However, I am curious about book 2 because I liked a lot of the other elements to this. In a romantasy, I really want the romance though to shine, and because of that, I think this is going to get a 3-star. It's something I liked. It's an author that I will read more from. It's a series I might continue, so I am really glad that I picked this up, but I do wish that it had been a little bit longer and we had spent more time allowing the two of them to get to know each other more, because I think that that would have really helped, and I do think that he needed just a touch more personality because he felt kind of flat for me. But now we have escaped the bedroom and we're gonna go straight down to the living room. We're gonna try to get out of here. We can see the door, but there's something crawling from under the couch. We can't see what that is. We don't know what's behind the door, so we're gonna have to enter blindly and just have faith that this door is the exit and where we need to be. So for this one, we have to enter blindly into a book, go into it not really knowing anything about it. I think I'm going to go with The House of Gilded Nightmares. It's hard for me to go with any physical book that I own, or even really a Kindle book, without me knowing anything about it. I only keep things like on my radar and keep things on my shelves that I have some interest in, but this is a pretty blind going into for me. All I really know about it is a romantasy. I can assume from the fact that it says nightmares on it that it might be a good fall read, might involve some kind of nightmare type magic, but that is all I know about it going in. The back tagline says a shadow fae guardian, the future queen of nightmares, and the dark destiny that they share. So definitely gonna have a shadow daddy aspect, I think, to it. I've had this one for a while. It was gifted to me by Clementine, so thank you so much to Clementine. And I think that I'm going to be getting a special edition actually of this through Fabled sometime in the near future, so I hope that I enjoy it. So I told you guys I might be coming back with an update that I had DNF'd The House of Gilded Nightmares, and I think that that is going to be this update. I got a little bit further in this and just realized I didn't care. It's not that it's bad, I just was not invested at all. It felt so basic in regards to romantasy. The romance itself really had not even come in at about halfway. They had met, but there was no chemistry there, and I just did not want to continue. And it's not that it was bad. It would have probably gotten a 3-star, but why continue when I'm not enjoying it? All in all, I just didn't love the setup and kind of the fact that our main character just existed to be betrothed to men, especially men that she didn't choose. And she tried to make that a little bit better and smooth that over, but in my opinion, it just wasn't my favorite. Obviously, we know who Endgame was, but I wanted more chemistry, I wanted more banter, and they were just kind of existing around one another and mostly traveling, and I just wasn't interested. If there had been more monsters or more banter or something like that, I think I could have really gotten behind this, but all in all, it wasn't for me. But I did try to enter into a book blindly, so I think that the house is going to let us escape. Thank you guys so much for joining me on my journey throughout the haunted house. If you guys are interested in more reading vlogs, more surprise, what am I gonna pick reading vlogs, I will leave my Spookoplathon video up here for you to check out. If you just want to let me know that you were here and hanging out, leave me me a house emoji in honor of the haunted house, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!